Okay, well, it's around 4 o'clock in the morning, everybody. So good morning. I've been up since about 2. I am feeling some better than I was though earlier, or late yesterday. I was quite sick. I was in a lot of pain late yesterday, and the pain has dissipated quite a bit. There's still a little bit of pain, but it's not nearly as bad as it was. It was really bad there when I went to bed. Um, yeah, Rocky is over there having his wet food with his painkiller in it. I put some of his painkiller. I put his dose of painkiller in there, so that'll help him to feel better today, to have no pain and so on. Anyway, I I'm going to talk a little bit now about a law. I've just been laying here thinking about it, about a law that's being passed in Canada right now, which, if it passes, will enable the government to ban a person from using the internet. Um, like if you have a YouTube channel, like mine, for example, and you say something that the government doesn't like, which of course I do all the time, where you can be banned from the internet. Um, if you have a Facebook page and you post something, you write something, or you make a Facebook reel, or you share a meme, or you reshare something somebody else has written, or whatever, that the government doesn't like or approve of, you could be banned from the internet. Now, here's the thing. Not only can you be banned from the internet, but they don't even have to tell you. In fact, the government can order your internet provider to cut you off and to not tell you that you're subject to a government order that you're banned from the internet, or there'll be criminal consequences coming to them if they divulge that to you. Canada is not a free country. The fact that just that alone proves it. And I'll get into that in a minute. But what I also want to say about it is, in Canada, we don't have God-given rights. What we have is privileges granted to us by the Crown. Now, the Crown is the government, basically. So if the government grants you a privilege, the government can take it away. For example, let's say you and I are neighbors, and let's say I don't have a vehicle, but I occasionally need to use a vehicle, and you, because you're my neighbor and because we've become friends and you trust me and so on, you allow me to use your car sometimes. You say, Tom, hey, if you need a car, come on over, borrow my car. If I'm not using it at the time, you're welcome to use it. And so I come over, I borrow your car sometimes. Now, my borrowing of your car is not a right, it's a privilege. You're allowing me to use your car. You don't have to allow me to use your car. It's your car, not mine. So it's a privilege. It isn't a right to use the car. So if I come over and I want to use the car, you can say no to me for any reason you choose to. You can say no to me because you're going to need the car today. You can say so you can't lend it because you're going to be using it. You can say no to me because you've decided not to lend me the car anymore. You can say no to me because it's Tuesday and there's going to be a full moon tonight. You can say no to me because I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt and you don't like Hawaiian shirts. Um, you can say no to me because I changed the presets on your radio last time I had the car, or because I didn't put the driver's seat back into whatever position you're comfortable with before when I return the car, or whatever. You can say no to me for any reason because I don't have a right to use your car. Using your car is a privilege that you've extended to me, and you can revoke that privilege at any time. I have a client who I work for who had given me permission to make videos on their property to share on my YouTube channel here. When I first started to work for them, I asked them and they agreed. And then I made a video in which there was a couple of things on the property that appeared in the video, and they weren't happy about it. And so they told me, you can no longer make videos on our property. They had the right to do that because that's a privilege. That's not my property, it's their property. The reason I asked them permission to make videos in the first place is because it's their property, and I have to be respectful of their space and of their property. When I made the video, there was no intention to be disrespectful. I didn't realize that it was going to create the issue it created, but it did create an issue. And so I was told, do not make any more videos on this property. And I have not made any more videos on that property because I've respected the fact that they have withdrawn their consent for me to do that. They have revoked the privilege of making videos on their property. It's not a right, it's a privilege. You see, I had a privilege of doing that. I didn't have a right to do it. And they can revoke that privilege for any reason. See, that's the thing about privileges. That's the difference between a privilege and a right. Now, if it were my property, I could make videos there all day long. And if somebody came and said, hey, don't make videos here, I could say, kick rocks. Screw you. I'll make videos if I want to. It's my property. I could do that. As it stands, I own a truck. I have the right to drive my truck. In a way I don't. I have a privilege because they call driving a privilege too. So if I'm operating it on the public highways, it's actually a privilege to drive the truck. See, we don't really have rights here. That's the bottom line. We have privileges. And so what's happening is now our privileges are being revoked in this country. We never did have rights. And it's funny, I remember back in the 1970s, my dad telling me that in Canada we don't have rights. You have no rights in this country. You don't have human rights, you have privileges. And they can be revoked at any time. And he said, this is back in the 1970s, I remember he said, if you get arrested by the police in Canada, a lot of people, they watch American television and they think that they have all these rights because they're watching American police shows and so on. But he said it's not like that in Canada. You don't have rights. You get arrested in Canada, you have whatever rights the police tell you have. That's about it. Whatever rights they decide you have. That's pretty much it. And that is true. That actually is true. That's how it is here. And but here's the thing. We don't have rights, we have privileges. See, in the United States, under their Constitution, they have God-given rights. Well, if God gives you the right, only God can take it away. There is no government can take away a God-given right because all governments are under God. God is above everybody, including the government. But in Canada, we have rights given to us by the Crown, so they're actually privileges. Because if the Crown gives it, the Crown can take it away. Just like if the Lord giveth, the Lord can taketh away, And so the U.S. government doesn't have a prerogative to take a U.S. citizen's rights away from him because those rights were granted by God himself, according to the wording of their Constitution. Now, even if you don't believe in God, even if you're an atheist, everybody understands the concept of a higher power, even if they don't believe that such a power exists. So even an atheist can look at the U.S. Constitution and say, well, according to this, the government does not have the right to take your rights. Now, of course, the government in the United States has, in certain respects, ignored their Constitution, and they're actually trying to take the rights of the people away anyway, although they're having a harder time of it because of the wording of the Constitution. In Canada, it's very easy to take somebody's rights away because we don't really have rights. We have privileges granted to us by the government that wants to take them away. So that's where we're at here. Anyway, this law, the law that they're trying to put through now, that will basically boot people off the internet if they express ideas or share ideas that the government disagrees with, like I often do. That law effectively denies a person due process. For example, with that law, if I'm booted off the internet, I'm not even going to be allowed to know that I have been booted off the internet. Now, I'll know when I try to use the internet and it doesn't work. And when I'm unable to purchase any services from any internet provider, I'll know I've been booted off it. But I'll never be informed officially. I'll never be told outright you've been booted off the internet because the government disapproves of the things you say and the things you share. You see, that will never happen. I'll never be told officially, but I will be booted off the internet just the same. Now, like I say, it denies due process because generally before a person is punished, there's a process. That's due process. Like, for example, if I'm accused of a crime, let's say I'm accused of committing a robbery. The police say, we think that you held up the corner store. We think you went in there and you put a gun in the guy's face in the corner store and you stole his money. And you made him give you his money. And so you committed an armed robbery at the corner store. That's the accusation we're making against you, and we're going to charge you for it, and on like that. Well, okay, they can charge me if they think they can win the case. They consult with the Crown Attorney, who is basically the equivalent of a district attorney or whatever. In Canada, the district attorney is called the Crown Attorney. The police consult with the Crown Attorney. There's Rocky. There he is. The police consult with the Crown Attorney, and if they feel that there's a reasonable prospect of getting a conviction, they show the Crown Attorney the evidence they have, and if they think there's a case there, then they charge me. If the Crown Attorney says, yes, go ahead and charge him, I think I have a reasonable prospect of winning the case, then they charge me. Okay, when they charge me, I'm given a court date. Now, I may be held in jail until my court date, or I may be released on bail or whatever, but the thing is, I'm informed that there's a court date. Your case will be heard on such and such a date at such and such a time in such and such a courthouse in such a courtroom before such and such a judge, or we'll have a jury selection on that day, and then we'll hear your case or whatever. But the thing is, I'm informed that the accusation has been made. I'm informed that I have been accused of committing the crime of armed robbery. I'm informed of the date, time, and place of my trial. And I'm either held in jail and then taken to that place for my trial, or I'm released and I'm required to show up at that place for my trial to get myself there to that place. Now, for my trial, I'm entitled to see all the evidence against me. I'm entitled to know exactly what I'm accused of. I'm entitled to see all the evidence the Crown has against me. I'm entitled to know everything about their case. And I'm entitled to dispute that evidence. You know, I'm entitled to do that in a court of law. I'm entitled to say, well, wait a minute. You say that I was in that store robbing it at 10 p.m. on Saturday, such and such a date, or whatever, but I have proof that I was attending my nephew's birthday party in another city at that time, and therefore I can't have done that, or whatever, there may be something like that I've got where I can prove that I had nothing to do with that. I wasn't anywhere near to where that happened, and therefore couldn't have had anything to do with it. You see, I have the opportunity to see the evidence against me. I have the opportunity to agree or disagree with the evidence. I have an opportunity to dispute the evidence. I have an opportunity to show proof that the evidence against me is false. If there's misconduct on the part of the police or the prosecutor, I have an opportunity to bring that up. Now, if I'm convicted and I'm sentenced, I say I'm sentenced to some punishment, I have an opportunity to appeal my conviction. I also have an opportunity to appeal my sentence. Maybe I'll concede that I did do the robbery, but maybe the sentence that I received is unduly harsh. Maybe other people who have done similar things under similar circumstances have received far less of a sentence. So I may be able to go back to court and say, I believe I'm being treated unduly harshly in this situation, and bring that before a judge. Or I may be able to say, I believe that my trial was not conducted properly. I believe I was convicted in error. I believe I was falsely convicted, and I want to appeal my conviction. I can do that too. See, that's all due process. Now, what this law does is it denies due process. What this law does, this internet law, it says the government can secretly boot you off the internet. It can order your internet provider to discontinue your service, and it can order all other internet providers not to sell you any service. It can do that. And it can forbid them to tell you why they won't sell you any service. It can forbid them to tell you why they booted you off, why they're denying you service, and so on. Now, to my way of thinking, that's a denial of due process. That's punishing somebody by decree. That's similar to the old medieval king who could just say, off with his head, and the guards would grab you up, take you outside, and chop your head off. And you didn't have a right even to ask why you were being decapitated, or to appeal the decision to decapitate you. You didn't have a right to say, well, wait a minute, before you cut my head off, I want to go to trial. I want to dispute the accusation that would result in my head being cut off. And so I want to go to trial. I want to dispute this accusation. I want to know what the accusation against me is, and then I want to dispute it, rather than just be hauled outside and decapitated. You see, you didn't have that right under the medieval kings. They could just say, take him outside and do away with him. This guy has displeased me. Take him outside and do away with him. That's all they had to do, and you weren't entitled to know anything, and you weren't entitled to dispute it. The king had spoken. Well, that's what we got going on here in Canada. The king will speak and you will be punished, and you won't have a right of appeal. And the thing is, law operates largely on precedent. So if a law is passed that says that you can be censored, restricted, punished in some way, when you don't even have a right to know what accusation is made against you, you don't have a right to dispute that accusation, you don't have a right to to face your accuser and to require him to prove his case, and you don't have a right of appeal. In fact, you don't even have a right to know you were ever accused of anything or that you are being punished. You don't even have a right to be informed of that, but yet you will still be punished. Once that's accepted as a principle of law, that can be applied to other things. So once you accept that in this country, under this system, a person can be punished by decree, by secret decree, where they're not even allowed to know anything, they're just going to be punished, you can extend that to other things. So today I post something on the internet that the government doesn't approve of, and they say, that's it, we're banning this guy from the internet. He's no longer going to be able to purchase services, to be able to go on the internet, and so on. We're banning him. And he's not allowed to know he's banned. He's not allowed to know why he's banned or even to know he's banned. He's not going to be told he's banned. In fact, we're forbidding anybody from telling this guy that he's been banned. But he'll be banned. He'll just find that he will not be able to use the internet anymore. If that's what they're doing today, then tomorrow they can order the police to pick me up and take me to prison. And they can order the prison authorities to hold me in prison for however long it is they decide that I should be held in prison, even for the rest of my life. Because if they want to, and they don't have to tell me why. In fact, they may forbid the police from telling me why. They may forbid the prison authorities from telling me why. They may say, just pick this guy up and take him to prison. And to the police, and they may say to the prison authorities, when the police bring this guy to your prison, lock him up in a cell and hold him there. Keep him there. And nobody is to tell this guy why this is happening. They can do that then, because it establishes a precedent. It establishes that the government has a right to punish without explanation. That's a dangerous thing. So see, this law is far more dangerous even than it appears to be on the surface. And we have a government that's trying to put through a lot of shit like this. A lot of laws that are just really dangerous. This video I'm making right now could get me into a lot of trouble, especially once these new laws pass. And apparently these laws are going to be retroactive. So even things you posted prior to the law coming out, they can go through your social media and they can use things you posted prior to that to punish you. So by making this video, I'm taking a huge risk. I'm aware of it, and I'm an adult. I'm making a choice to take the risk I'm taking. But the bottom line is, this is serious. This is of real importance. What's happening right now, and unfortunately, most Canadians are sleepwalking. They have no idea how bad all of this really is, and they don't want to know. They don't want to know. They want to focus on drinking beer and watching hockey. That's what it is. They don't want to know. Canadians are some of the most cognitively dissonant people in the world. We can see what's happening in England already, where they're arresting people for posting memes and things, for posting things that are critical of the government, or that are critical of certain groups or movements that the government is behind or in support of, and so on. I had somebody one time on Facebook tell me that I can't call myself a Christian because I don't support the organization Black Lives Matter. And I responded by saying that I believe the organization Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization based upon the tactics that it uses of looting and arson and so on, rioting and so on. That I believe that's a terrorist organization. Our government in Canada supports the organization Black Lives Matter. Our Prime Minister actually marched in Ottawa with members of Black Lives Matter. Well, our previous Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, not our current one. Although our current Prime Minister, Mark Carney, is just as big or even a worse douchebag than Justin Trudeau. I don't know if he's ever marched with any of these outfits or not, but Justin Trudeau has. And when the trucker convoy came to Ottawa, a reporter asked Justin Trudeau about his marching with Black Lives Matter, and yet being so against the trucker convoy. And Justin Trudeau said, I agree with Black Lives Matter, I don't agree with the trucker convoy. Well, okay. But Black Lives Matter has used terroristic methods to get their way. In the United States, they've looted and burned their way through several cities. That's an issue for me. I can't support that organization. But the fact that I said, and it was probably 2 or 3 years ago now that I said it, that Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization, our government now could come back on me and say you can't use the internet anymore, or we're going to jail you. In fact, they don't even have to say that. They can just cut me off, and I won't even be allowed to know why I was cut off. I won't be told officially why. I'll know that it was because of stuff I posted they didn't like, but I won't be told officially. And the whole thing with like that one conversation I had with that person who said you can't call yourself a Christian if you don't support the organization Black Lives Matter. And I explained that it's because it's a terroristic organization that uses terroristic methods that I don't support it. Our government could dig that up and say, well, the government of Canada does support that organization. And as a citizen of Canada, you have gone against the position of your government, and therefore you're banned from the internet. And they don't even have to tell me, they can just do it. Also, they could turn around and arrest me and say, you are a racist. Saying you don't support the organization Black Lives Matter is a racial hate crime, and you are a racist. And so we're arresting you because we think that you might pose a threat to certain groups of people within our society. As a racist, this is what we think. Well, I mean, look, I don't support Black Lives Matter because of their methods. That's what it is. I don't like their methods. As far as racism goes, it has nothing to do with racism. I just don't like their methods. If they were a bunch of white people using the same, like I am, using the same methods that Black Lives Matter uses, I would also be against them. Now, the trucker convoy didn't use those methods. The government tried to say that they did, but in fact they did not. And so for Trudeau to march with the Black Lives Matter people and then to do what he did, the persecution that he's imposed upon the people who have ran the trucker convoy, tells me an awful lot about how screwed up things are here, for one thing. And it also tells me how dangerous a place Canada is right now. There are so many things happening here that are wrong. It won't be long before they'll be imposing the digital ID like they're doing in England now. That's another thing. I don't believe the digital ID is the mark of the beast, although it shares a lot of similarities because it's going to freeze people out in the marketplace if they don't get it and so on. I do, however, believe that it's a precursor to it. I don't think it can be the mark of the beast yet because the Antichrist has yet to reveal himself, and the mark of the beast will come after the Antichrist reveals himself. So it can't really be the mark of the beast, but it's a precursor to it. I can guarantee you it's a precursor to it. It shares enough similarities to it that it's a precursor. Everything that is happening right now points to the emergence of the beast system, which is spoken of in the Bible. The dissolving of human rights, all the stuff that's being upheld and supported that is anti-biblical, that is anti-God, and even is and it is actually anti-human as well. Laws that are being passed to deny due process, to deny basic human rights, and so on. Like I say, things like the digital ID, which I believe are precursors to the mark of the beast. The intentional degradation of society, which is occurring in a variety of ways right across the world in all these so-called Western democracies like Canada, the United States, England, France, Italy, and so on. There are so many things happening right now that point towards all the stuff that the Bible has told us is coming. Yeah, incidentally, I'll